Hello and welcome. I'm Carl the Landscape Guy, and today I'm building a natural looking garden stream for a customer, and I will show you every step in detail. I'm really looking forward to this project, and I think that it is very possible to replicate it with the help of this video. Thank you to all my viewers for the many likes, comments and subscriptions lately. That helps a lot and enables me to produce new videos for you. Today we're in a fairly small yard, and therefore I have planned a 3-meter long stream. The size of the stream can be easily changed depending on how much space you have for this construction. First, I cut a square that is about 70 by 70 centimeters and then remove the turf. Then I dig the square out to about 70 centimeters deep. I am reusing the soil to make a small hill for our stream because we'll need a slope for proper water flow. It is important to well compact the soil layer by layer from the beginning by treading on it, so the stream won't sag later. By the way, you can find my tools and equipment in the description section, so please use the links to order what you need. I'm creating a slight slope around the edges here now. I formed the hill a little elongated, which will fit the stream better. Now the ground is getting sandier, but that's good because sand can be compacted better. Right away, I remove things like garbage, stones, or even broken glass like this here, because we do not want to risk damaging the pond liner later on. Now I add a few wheelbarrows of soil, which is available to me on this construction site. This makes our hill a little larger, but it's not entirely necessary. Maybe you have some soil or sand laying around that can be used, or you might already have a natural slope in your garden where the stream can be built in nicely. You can see here that I have already decreased the slope going towards the hole. And I use this tamper to compact the soil one more time. Now you've probably already asked yourself what's going into the hole, and I'm going to get that ready right now. It is a percolation cube, some manufacturers also call it aqua block, which needs to be assembled. But assembling is very fast and easy with these little pins. One side will remain open for now, and you'll find out why a little later. The percolation cube should be installed level, so I use a spirit level to pull the soil flat. The cube size is 60 by 60 by 60 centimeters, and the hole is about 70 centimeters deep, so that the cube will sit a little lower in the hole, This way the water will run in better and it's easier to cover with rocks later. Next, I lay out a thick protective layer that weighs 300 grams per square meter. After that comes the pond liner. Both the fabric and the liner are 2 meters wide and 5 meters long. And it just fits with the 60 centimeter cube. I also wrapped the cube in fabric so it can't damage the liner. Now we move on to the stream bed. I formed the lowest dam with the help of a garden curbstone. I use only a little concrete just so that it does not tip over. I set the top of the stone at about 15 centimeters above the upper edge of the cube. Now the rest of the stream bed will be formed. I set the second dam with old paver stones. Here only a little concrete is needed so that they don't topple over. The difference in height between each dam is about 20 centimeters. The third dam is the highest one. All dams should be made nice and level. Now the stream gets an outside border all the way around it. It is important that the outer edge is at least 5 centimeters higher than the dam. 10 centimeters is even better. The individual pools between the dams can be shaped well with a shovel. The lowest dam seems a little too narrow to me, so I'll make it a little wider with pavers. Now I simply fold the fabric and the liner back over our new stream bed. Since I made the hole a little bigger than the cube, I have to fill and compact the gap with some sand to keep the liner tight around the cube. I cut off excess protective fabric around the cube, but be careful not to cut the pond liner. Now I lay the 25mm hose, which fits exactly through the cube's grid. I put it through the side wall instead of through the lid, so that the hose is not in the way when you want to take the lid off in the future. Next, the stones have to be prepared and selected. This time I'm using sand quarry stones, which are also called Armourstones. I find these interesting in color and they're easy to work with. The stones are too big for a little stream, so I break them apart with a sledgehammer. I try to get a few flat ones where the water can run over them nicely. These I can then later install into the dams. When I smash the stones, I also get gravel, which I can use for small gaps between the larger stones. Overall, I make sure to select many different sizes, which makes it look more natural. This works especially well with this quarry stone. Before I start putting the stones into the stream, I cut a base out of the remaining fabric to protect the liner. The fabric should not stick out over the edges because that could lead to water loss. Then I start building the first dam. For this, the stones must be placed on top of each other to achieve the right height. Here there's a lot of trial and error, but just keep changing it around until it fits. For the first row, I use smaller broken stones with a similar height, on which a larger white stone is placed. When the height and stability is correct, I seal it with this special foam. This landscaping foam was kindly provided to me by Aquaforte, and it has many advantages. First of all, it's easy to use. If you lay stones loosely on top of each other, the gaps can be easily filled with the foam's enclosed straw attachment. The foam expands but does not displace or push away the individual stone. The foam fills the gaps between the stones and liner perfectly so that later the water runs nicely over the top of the stone and not underneath them. The top stone of each dam should be placed level and crosswise to the direction of the water flow. I check this with the spirit level. Now I've technically already finished the first dam. And this is how it looks now. And next I continue with the second one above it. Here I want to use this larger stone on top, so I'm looking for a stone with the right height to fit underneath it. The top stone sits about 3 centimeters higher than the liner at the dam edge. The stones of the dam steps are secured as a whole with the foam, so that they're stable and won't collapse. This should not be neglected because it concerns the safety of children playing by the stream. I proceed step by step and build the middle of the dam first. Then suitable stones can be filled up to the right and left of it. You don't have to spray everything at once because the foam quickly forms a skin that doesn't stick well. Next, I put the lid on the cube so that I can access the lower dam better. The bottom dam does not go on top of the cube but just in front of it so that you can remove the lid later without having to remove the whole dam. The liner must lay loosely and must not be taut underneath any circumstances. It is better to leave small folds. Here I proceed similarly to the previous steps. However, I make sure that I build up each dam differently. For example, I don't always use large stones in the middle, but make sure to vary the stone size and arrangements so that the stream looks even more natural. The sand quarry stones can also be shaped easily if the height or shape is not quite right. In previous videos I had secured the dams with concrete, which works, but is not perfect, especially in regarding to frost during the winter. Moisture can penetrate through and frost can loosen the stones from the concrete. The foam, however, provides a flexible, durable and lightweight seal that is frost resistant and gentle on the liner. I am now looking for flat, thin stones to cover the liner directly behind the dams. I've got all the available stones spread out right next to the stream so that I can pick out what fits best. Of course it helps to have a good eye and imagination as well as experience, but even then not every stone will fit on the first try. However, it'll normally fit somewhere else. I put stones that are not so flat here between the dams on the fabric. These do not have to be secured, but I make sure that there are no big gaps. When I find ones that fit on top of the dams nicely, I glue it on immediately until the entire liner is covered. This not only looks good, but also protects the liner. Within 4 hours, the foam is already dry. When curing, the foam expands further and some bubbles can be seen between the stones. This can be avoided by using a little less foam than I did, but I prefer to use a little more than too little. The protruding foam can be easily removed. You can use a knife, but be careful not to cut the liner underneath. The foam is now barely visible. The 3 dams are almost finished now, and I want to test it out for the first time and see if the water runs over the stones as planned or if something still needs to be changed. To do this, I put the garden hose in the top pool and observe how the water runs down into the cube. And I'm very satisfied with the first test. There's no water running over the sides and the dams work as planned. And due to the water pressure, the liner is now pressed down everywhere nicely before more stones are being distributed. However, I am not yet satisfied with the top part of the stream. Here I have already laid out some stones, but now I'm taking them back out again. I would like to build a small waterfall spillway here, through which the water will later be pumped from the cube reservoir. I try to find 2 stones as a base. This is not easy with these because they're perhaps a little too tall, and I want to place this stone on top. This is not that bad, but I'm not completely satisfied. Somehow the 2 stones are just too big and uniform. I want to try something else. The low stones should be a little smaller, so that the upper stone has a good size overhang. I like it like this much better, and I can already imagine how the water will cascade beautifully over this edge. Now I want to enclose the spillway stone on the side so that a small cave is created. Well, that didn't work, so I'll continue with smaller stones instead. The hose should be connected here from behind. On the right and left, the stones should be a little bit higher so that the water flows in between them. From behind, I want to close the spillway with this beautiful stone so that it looks as if the water comes out of the cave. Now I use the landscaping foam from Aquaforte again and start to fill up the gaps at the bottom. And then I lay one stone after the other in the same way that I had them arranged before. Now the hose is inserted and then the foam needs to harden. I secure these small stones on as well, which helps to protect the liner. While everything is hardening nicely, I'll show you what pump I'll be installing this time. Aquaforte has sent me this O+ Vario 10,000S pump for this video. Thank you again, Aquaforte. Now let's take a closer look at the pump. This pump's special feature is the adjustable flow regulation option with the help of this digital controller. In addition, of course, there are sufficient hose fittings included for all hose sizes. And naturally the pump with its casing, which can be easily opened and cleaned. Now I will connect the pump to the hose in the cube. To do this, I always use an additional clamp because the pressure can sometimes detach the hose. I use this 25mm hose because it's easy to pull through the cube and can be hidden well between the stones. Of course, you can also use a thicker hose to get an even higher output. Before connecting the O Vario 10,000S, I take another look at the casing. This pump is electronically adjustable and designed for underwater installation, so perfectly suited for this stream. Alright, so we close the lid again and simply screw on the hose adapter. Due to the ball joint, the nozzle can be adjusted well. This is particularly helpful here because the pump can sink to the bottom of the cube and the hose remains kink-free. The small plug can be pulled well through the cube's wall and will later provide a waterproof connection from the pump to the control unit. Now the cube can be closed. At night the stream should also be eye-catching, therefore Aquaforte has sent me this waterproof LED lighting. The low voltage connection to the 12 volt adapter is waterproof with a screwable connection and appears to be well made. The 6 watt LED lamps seem to be good quality and sturdy. The weighted feet can easily be replaced with ground spikes, which are also included. The bracket can be removed with the stainless steel screws, which allows me to place the lamp as inconspicuous as possible in between the stones. These lamps have a long cable, which gives me freedom in placement on the stream, which is great. The set also includes a light sensor that automatically turns the lamps on at dusk. The warm white light color will go great with the sandstones. The first lamp should set the scene for the waterfall spillway area. I place a few stones like this so that the spotlight disappears behind them. I'm running the wire under the stones, and I installed a second spotlight near the dam steps. With the help of this cable box, I can set up the power supply for the pump and lighting. There are no outdoor sockets in this backyard, and apart from that, they often disturb the general view. An underground cable with a plug will serve as a power supply in the box. I want to install the waterproof pump controller between the stones so that it is accessible. It also has a waterproof connection to the pump cable. The plugs are then put into the waterproof box through the rubber seal and cable grip and connected. Now to connect all the spotlights to the 12 volt transformer cable with the light sensor switch. I sort and wrap up the cables and place them under the liner along with the hose, which provides additional rain protection. The underground cable can be switched on and off from the house. You could also use Wi-Fi plugs in the box and switch the pump and lighting on individually with your smartphone. Since we have everything connected, we can now do a test run with the pump. I'm excited. And I must say, I really like how the waterfall spillway came out. The dams are also running very well and the water circulation seems to function properly. The water volume is currently the full pump capacity, so that is 10,000 liters per hour, and it can be reduced as desired. I keep the pump running while I continue to place sandstones around the stream. I place the different size stones together in a way so that the liner is not visible later. It also looks more solid. The top of the cube can now be covered with flat stones. When I take a stone that doesn't fit on the cube, I simply place it elsewhere on the stream. Here in the front, I now install a third lamp. A few large stones will fit well back here. I put them in a small trench so that they don't roll downhill. I use the smaller stones and gravel to fill up any gaps. I like how it's coming out so far. It's especially nice how the sun reflects on the water. Before I start adding plants around the stream and yard, I will take care of the rest of the yard, starting with removing the turf. And with it, I form a small raised terrain. On both sides of the stream, I mark where the walkways will go. Simple galvanized steel edges form the border. On the other side, the path will be partially enclosed with a small dry stone wall. At the same time, this will hold up the raised terrain. Naturally, I use the same sandstones as in the stream. Reusing the same materials makes the yard more harmonious. Detailed information on the construction of larger natural stone walls can be found on my channel, so make sure to check it out. The plants immediately create a lively atmosphere. Here we have a reddish dwarf Chinese silvergrass, and further ahead there are Chinese fountain grass, also a dwarf form. In the stones I put several reddish sedum. This is creeping thyme, which nestles nicely between the stones. Some blue festook here, and here in front are some perennials like tickseed and carnations. I always plant at least 2 of each species together and have them reappear elsewhere in the yard. After the planting work is done, the soil is leveled out on the paths and between the plants. An anti-weed fabric is laid in the raised bed area. The path will also be covered with fabric, but I only cover one for now. The bark mulch inhibits weed growth and soil drying. It is important not to plant the plants too deep beforehand. I'm now getting the gravel for the walkways with the trailer. I use gravel grain size 16 to 32 millimeters. When I spread out the gravel, I work my way forward so that I don't have to roll over the fabric and it will stay nice and smooth. Here in the back, the path becomes wider to make room for a garden bench. Now I will lay out the fabric for the second path, because until now I was using it often with the wheelbarrow. With the help of the pegs, the fabric can be laid neatly and sturdily. Only then cut off the excess, this way the fabric won't shift and there'll be no gaps for weeds to grow through. And now the small garden is finished. With the stream at its centerpiece, a charming source of relaxation created by the cascading waterfalls. And you may have noticed that I didn't use any water plants. This keeps the water clean longer and minimizes maintenance. Here is a little tip to remove this algae that has already formed. Use 500 grams of salt and the problem is solved the next day. This is more environmentally friendly but also cheap and long lasting. The vast majority of water plants do not tolerate salt. Instead, the stream was provided with reeds and grasses for the appropriate character. The customer wanted a low-maintenance garden with minimal plants. but of course you can add more plants depending on your taste. A stream always has increased water evaporation due to the moving water. This means that the queue, which is the water reservoir, should be filled about once a week with a garden hose. I hope you like my video. An update video will be made coming up showing the stream at night, maintenance, and how well it has functioned over time, so make sure to subscribe. Feel free to comment, like, share, and take a look around my channel. I wish you much success with your projects. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Carl the Landscape Guy.